No one can get the ball off him. The small people, metaphorically and literally, who are up against him on the New Labour side, simply aren't at the same contest as he is. We're in real danger of breaking up our country, and if that happens, God forbid, New Labour will share a very substantial part of the blame.
But a nice lot of references to the 1960s, Billy Fury, and then...
Showing my age.
Unfairly attacking Billy Fury.
Lord
Yes. I think that Francis has slightly misstated what Gould's report says. Gould's report said all
Misled, has he?
Order!
Take him out.
What Gould is saying in his report is all of the political parties, including my political party, put partisan interests first. It includes the Conservatives, who were consulted over a long period of time in relation to the ballot paper and only put their own interests first. I think the report is incredibly worrying because it indicates that the political system, insofar as it's looking at things like how an election is being conducted, is being determined on partisan terms. And that will make people lose faith in the electoral system. It's not good enough, I don't think, for Francis to say, oh, it's all Labour. We're all in it. That's what Gould is saying.
What he said was, what is characteristic of 2007 was a notable level of party self-interest evident in ministerial decision-making.
And he says as well, and he says as well, and you've got this quote, I'm quite sure, David, that at all stages, including the consultation, all parties were guilty of putting party interest first. And that's what the report says. I do not in any way seek to exculpate my own party from this, but I do think as politicians we have got to address what is happening, and we've got to think of a way of making sure that people in the future have confidence that those decisions and people's part in the taking of those decisions is done on a non-partisan basis.
Maria Misra.
Well, yeah, I think the question's a bit unfair. It was clear that all the parties had an interest in this. I mean, what surprises me is that people find this surprising. I think from time, since political science was invented, it's been clear that electoral processes, the timing of elections, the design of ballot papers, the coordination of local and national elections, the position on the ballot paper of your party affects the outcome, and politicians know that. So why allow the addicts to be in charge of the pharmacy? Why don't we just take the whole control, the running of elections, including setting their timing, the design of ballot papers, and whether we use, what electoral systems we use, and actually, giving them to an independent commissioner?
I think the problem here was, as Francis said, Mr. Gould's a Canadian. He kind of came over to Britain and thought, look at the way they do it over here. You get the political party that's in charge, working out how they do the elections. And I think it was his aghastness of the British system which led to this. You may remember a few weeks ago, a general election was cancelled in Britain. And if that wasn't doing it for narrow party political interests, I don't know what was. I mean, that's how we do it in this country, and I think you're actually absolutely right. It should change. The only way to get out, you shouldn't blame Labour, you shouldn't blame the Tories. We should have a fixed parliamentary system here where the politicians do not get to decide how people vote for them.
A fixed term election.
Yeah. Absolutely, that's what we need.
Okay. Roseanne Edwards, please.
Cash for Honours scandal and the apparent lack of cooperation during the investigation demonstrate a rot at the centre of British political life.
Does the Cash for Honours scandal and the apparent lack of cooperation during the investigation revealed by the police officer John Yates in charge of it demonstrate a rot at the centre of British life? Maria?
Yes. My view on this, what lies at the bottom of this is the problem with the House of Lords and the problem with Britain's honours system, that people obviously think it's worth all of this money to get the influence that they get through the maintenance of this absurd peerage system. It's absolutely ludicrous that the British politicians can go around the world, boasting that Britain is the most ancient democracy, boasting that Britain has the experience to export democratic practices to other countries, when we have this ridiculous institution which is polluting the political process at the heart of it.
Is the implication of what you say you think there should have been criminal prosecutions?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know about the technicalities of that. I mean, you know, I mean, the two issues are bound up here, aren't they? The unelected nature of the House of Lords, the power of the parties to appoint people who give them money to these positions, and the whole mess of the funding of political parties. I mean, if we're going to hand over the control of elections to an independent commissioner, let's go the whole hog and just have state-funded political parties.
OK. Charlie Falconer.
No, I don't think it does. I think one of the difficulties about all of this has been we've never seen the whole thing, in the sense that we've never seen what all the statements said. We don't know what happened in the course of the investigation.
Would you like to, though? I mean, would you like Yates to publish the report, which he does have?
I wouldn't mind that at all. The difficulty about all of this is that where you decide not to prosecute somebody, then generally that means you're not going to let half allegations that don't justify a criminal prosecution, which is what's happened, become public. So it's terribly easy, I think, because the thing doesn't become public, for this sense that something went wrong in relation to the investigation. I don't think it did. I'm quite sure the police investigated properly and properly came to the conclusion that there wasn't a basis for prosecution. The consequence of this investigation has been to allow Maria to make the sort of remarks that she does, which is everybody is blackened by the whole thing. As far as the House of Lords are concerned, I think there is a strong case for there to be an elected element in the House of Lords, but I think the House of Lords does a pretty good job in holding governments to account, because the House of Lords is the only part of the legislature where the government of the day doesn't have and will never have a majority, and that means the Lords can stop any government doing things. So pause a bit before one makes it all elected.
I agree with your point, but this kind of thing discredits that institution.
Because of the fact that everybody like you can make these allegations not knowing the facts. When asked, do you think there should be prosecutions, you said, oh, that's a technicality.
Do you know the facts?
I don't know the facts either.
Why don't you know the facts?
Because, quite rightly, they're kept confidential by the police when they make investigations.
What do you make of the police saying they got less than full cooperation from Downing Street?
That they got less than full for cooperation. Who from Downing Street? That means a number of things. I don't know what they meant by that. I haven't the foggiest idea.
All right, well, let me put it another way round. Do you think they should have got full cooperation from Downing Street?
They should have got full cooperation from everybody. I've got no idea what's being referred to there. No, I don't, David.
George Galloway?
Well, you see, I really like Lord Falconer very much, and always have.
Could I say how much I like George Galloway?
But in a sense, Charlie's the personification of the problem. Nobody has ever elected him to anything in his puff. And yet he's been sitting in the cabinet, sitting in Parliament, sitting on the woolsack, and nobody has ever cast him. He's talking about elections in Scotland and elections in Iraq, but he's never been elected to anything. And that's the fatal flaw in this entire... It's not the fatal flaw in Charlie. It's not the fatal flaw of Charlie, it's the fatal flaw of us. How can we be a grown-up democracy when we have in Parliament, in the Cabinet, in the government, making laws, executing laws, people who were never chosen by the electorate? That's our problem. And then you get, as Maria said, people think, I'd quite like to be Charlie Falconer. It's too late to be the Prime Minister's flatmate, but maybe...
Not a subsequent Prime Minister,
maybe
George.
if I write a cheque big enough, I'll get either a K or especially I might get the big P. This is what we have to end, and the only way to end it is to abolish the appointed House of Lords.
The man up there, you, sir. Yes, you, sir.
This appears to be a whitewash, doesn't it? Because if the police didn't get the cooperation from the government, how come the CPS can say there's no case to answer? That's a legal matter.
I'll ask the former Lord Chancellor. What's your answer to that?
Well, none of us know what material the police obtained. I don't know what Commander Yates was referring to, but there's no suggestion that it was through a lack of information that they decided not to prosecute. They got the facts and then reached a conclusion.
Do you think he should publish all his notes?